Imagine working for over 3 decades, believing you're doing everything right. Saving consistently, avoiding unnecessary luxuries, delaying fun, postponing the things you love. All because one day, retirement will make it worth it. That was David's plan. David started working at 23. He followed the rule book perfectly. He contributed to his retirement account every single year. He skipped expensive vacations. He avoided risky adventures. He stayed focused. Whenever friends invited him on trips, he had the same answer. Maybe later, after I retire. Because David had a number in his head. At 65 years old, he would finally stop working. And by then, his portfolio would be worth $2 million. That was the dream. At 65, he would travel the world. He would hike mountains in Europe. He would scuba dive in Thailand. He would finally learn to sail. All the things he postponed for 40 years. But life doesn't always follow financial plans. At 61, David collapsed in his driveway. Heart attack. He survived, but survival came with conditions. His doctor told him something that changed everything. No high-intensity activity, no diving, no mountain hiking, no physically demanding travel. His heart simply couldn't handle it anymore. 4 years later, David retired exactly as planned. His portfolio? $2 million, the number he worked decades to achieve. But here's the cruel part. The money arrived, and the life he planned to use it for didn't. Today, David spends his retirement mostly at home. He watches television, he goes on short walks, sometimes he sits near the ocean and listens to the waves. But he can't swim, he can't hike, he can't sail. The dreams that required a healthy body are gone. And the truth is brutal. David didn't lose his money, he lost his timing. The traditional retirement model tells us something very simple. Work hard for 40 years, save aggressively, then finally start living at 65. But this model assumes something dangerous. It assumes the future version of you will still have the energy to live the life you're saving for. And that assumption is far more fragile than people realize. Your physical capability actually peaks surprisingly early. Strength, stamina, and mobility usually peak in your late 20s. After about 35, they slowly begin declining. By the time most people reach 65, the average person has lost a significant portion of their physical capacity. Less muscle, lower endurance, slower recovery. And that's just normal aging. It gets worse. Around 60% of people over 65 live with at least one chronic condition that limits physical activity. Heart disease, joint problems, respiratory issues. In other words, there is a very real chance the version of you at 65 will not be capable of doing the things you're postponing today. Which means something uncomfortable. The traditional retirement strategy is essentially a gamble. You sacrifice your healthiest decades, hoping your future body will still cooperate. Sometimes it does, but often it doesn't. Now here's the part most people never think about. Money and energy behave very differently over time. Money is renewable. If you spend money, you can earn more. But energy is not renewable. The energy you have in your 30s will never come back in your 60s. You cannot invest energy and collect it later. It expires every year. Which means experiences that require a healthy body have an expiration date. Learning to surf, climbing mountains, backpacking across countries, exploring remote places. These are not just money-based activities, they are energy-based activities, and the window to do them is smaller than we think. So what's the alternative? Some people are starting to rethink retirement entirely. Instead of saving every moment of freedom for age 65, they spread that freedom throughout their life. This idea is sometimes called mini-retirements. Instead of working non-stop for 40 years, you take intentional breaks during your life. A few months, maybe half a year. Time to travel, time to learn something new, time to experience the world while your body can still handle it. Think about this. Imagine someone takes 6 months off every 5 years, starting at age 30. By retirement, they might have taken around 3 years total away from work, 3 years of living, 3 years of experiences, 3 years when their body was still strong. Would that reduce their final retirement savings? Yes, but often far less than people expect, because the majority of investment growth happens later in life, not in the early years, which means the trade-off might look like this. Instead of retiring with $2 million, maybe you retire with $1.7 million, a smaller number on paper, but a much bigger life. The real question becomes, what is the point of money? If the goal of money is to create experiences, then waiting until your body can no longer have those experiences might defeat the purpose entirely. David did everything the system told him to do: work hard, save aggressively, delay gratification. And technically, he succeeded. But the life he imagined using that money for never arrived, not because he failed, but because time is unpredictable. This doesn't mean you should stop saving. It doesn't mean spend recklessly. It simply means recognizing something important. Financial planning should optimize life, not just numbers. Saving for the future matters, but so does living while your body is capable of living, because the most valuable asset you have isn't money, it's time with energy. And unlike money, once that runs out, there is no way to earn it back. If this perspective made you rethink the traditional retirement timeline, consider subscribing, because sometimes the smartest financial strategy is remembering that life isn't meant to start at 65.